Kenya election vote counting begins in crucial poll. Votes are being counted in Kenya after an election that observers describe as the most important in the country's history. Polls were due to close at 17, which is 14 GMT, but officials said those in queues at that time would be allowed to vote. Earlier attacks by Marshe-wielding gangs around the port city of Mombasa killed at least 15 people. With more than 10% of votes counted, the two presidential frontrunners were well ahead of the other candidates. The partial preliminary results from areas where polling ended on time gave Uhuru Kenyatta a lead over Prime Minister Raila Odinga, although analysts cautioned that these results came from Kenyatta strongholds. At the scene, Wanyama Chiabusiri, BBC News Eldoret. At a polling station close to the church where more than 40 people who had sought shelter there on 1st January 2008 were burnt alive, most voters were happy to have cast their ballots in peace. This vote is a new beginning, said a man who lost relatives in the fire. Gabriel Gatehouse, BBC News Nairobi. The queues in some places stretched for more than a kilometer, as voters in Kibera slums stood patiently in line. As the sun grew hotter and the umbrellas came out, the mood was upbeat. Peace, peace, one crowd shouted as a truck of paramilitary police trundled past. Mr. Kenyatta is due to face trial at the International Criminal Court ICC next month in connection with the widespread bloodshed that followed the disputed 2007 election. He denies organizing attacks. Mr. Odinga says he was cheated of victory last time. Biometric kits. Election officials put the turnout at more than 70%, marginally greater than in 2007, but said the figure could be higher because many polling stations had stayed open for some hours to cater for the queues of voters. Kenyans are choosing a president, members of parliament and senators, county governors, and members of 47 county assemblies. All eyes are on the presidency. 8 candidates are standing, but it is essentially a race pitting Mr. Odinga against Mr. Kenyatta, analysts say. Some observers say they are particularly concerned about violence erupting should neither of the two front runners poll more than 50%, in which case the vote will go to a runoff, probably on 11th April. Authorities had urged Kenyans to avoid a repeat of the 2007 ethnic and political violence that killed more than 1,000 people amid claims the poll had been rigged. As thousands continued to queue to cast their ballots, voting was extended by Kenya's Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, for up to 7 hours to cope with long queues at polling stations. The IEBC said some delays were caused by difficulties with newly instituted biometric voting kits intended to reduce fraud. In some places, electoral officials had to use manual voter registers, but Lilian Mahiri Zaja, the IEBC vice chair, said the registers were complete and there was no reason why the election should not be credible. After he cast his ballot, Mr. Odinga said he would accept defeat, but added that he was confident of victory in the first round. I will congratulate the winner, he said. Mr. Kenyatta also sounded a conciliatory note, saying the president would represent the whole country and that any disputes should be taken to court. 5 police officers and at least 6 other people, including several attackers, died in the assault in the early hours in Changamwe, half an hour's drive inland from Mombasa. There have been further disturbances in the town of Kilifi, north of Mombasa, where 6 civilians were killed, but details of the incident remain sketchy. Police pointed the finger at Kenya's coastal separatist group, the Mombasa Republican Council, MRC, but it denied responsibility, saying the group only sought change through peaceful means. In other developments, the BBC's Bashkas Jugsode in Garissa says there were 3 explosions in 3 different polling stations in Mandera, a town near the border with Somalia, as officials were preparing for polls to open. One person died, reports said. An attack was reported in a village near Mishomoroni, but there was no information about casualties. It was unclear whether the deaths around Mombasa were election-related, but the Kenyan police chief said one of the attacks involved more than 200 gang members, and in response he was sending an additional 400 officers to the area. Near impunity. Waiting in line outside polling stations in Nairobi hours before polls opened. The atmosphere was calm and people chanted peace, reports the BBC's Gabriel Gatehouse. In Garissa, frustration grew in the long queues as the heat beat down, our correspondent reports. Mr. Kenyatta, the son of Kenya's founding father Jomo Kenyatta, is due to stand trial at the ICC in April for his alleged role in orchestrating the violence 5 years ago. Mr. Kenyatta's running mate, William Ruto, has also been indicated. Both men deny any wrongdoing. The 2007 violence broke out after Mr. Odinga claimed he had been cheated of victory by supporters of President Mwai Kibaki. Supporters of the rival candidates from different ethnic groups took up arms against each other. Mr. Odinga later joined a government of national unity under a peace deal. The underlying sources of tension in the 2007-8 election remain, and in some parts have escalated, with the risk of violence perilously high, warns Human Rights Watch. It says the near total impunity of the perpetrators of violence has left them free to rape and kill again. Some 99,000 police officers have been deployed around the country. Presidential candidates must secure support from across the country to be declared the winner, so they cannot just rely on support from their ethnic groups, as has been the case in previous elections. Official results will be announced by 11th March by the Electoral Commission. So Raila Odinga versus Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta. He is the son of Kenya's first president, Jomo Kenyatta. Due to stand trial at ICC in April, accused of organizing violence in last election. His running mate, William Ruto, had also accused. Both deny the charges. From Kikuyu ethnic group, Kenya's largest at 22% of population and powerful economically. Kikuyus and Ruto's Kalenjin community saw fierce clashes after 2007 poll. Currently, he is the Deputy Prime Minister. Raila Odinga. He is the son of first Vice President Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, distant relative of Barack Obama. Believes he was cheated of victory in last election. From Luo community in western Kenya, 11% of population. Some Luos feel they have been marginalized by central government. Third time running for president, and he is currently Prime Minister under power-sharing deal to end violence last time.
This was a display of democratic engagement that would put most countries to shame. 5 years after a disputed election caused unprecedented violence and upheaval, the queues to vote just went on and on. And on. And on. Despite slow progress in the lines, by and large, the mood was upbeat. This was Kibera, the sprawling Nairobi slum that saw some of the worst violence after the last election. Those memories are still fresh, but there was a strong sense that perhaps today the people of Kenya might put that dark chapter behind them.
People are motivated. We want to vote. We want to make sure that we also vote the people we want to be in the new leadership. This is a very calm election. I see everybody is willing to support one another.
Well, for the first time, Kenyans are voting under a new constitution, and they're being asked to cast no fewer than 6 different ballots. You can see them going into their colour-coded ballot boxes here now. Blue for governor, green for member of the assembly, but the key one is this white one here, the vote for president. There are 8 different candidates standing, but really it's a 2-horse race, pitting the Prime Minister Raila Odinga against Uhuru Kenyatta. But despite Despite the impressive turnout, not everyone got to vote. Margaret Wambui Karanja is from Eldoret. During the violence that followed the last election, she and her community were chased from their homes.
They beat us on 92 and they just tell us we can go back to our country. And again 97. So when that crashes came on 2007, so we decided not to go back.
5 years on, she and more than 200 others still live here in this temporary village that's fast becoming permanent. It's a long way from where she's registered to vote. Today's election may be only the first chapter in a process that could continue to a second round in April. But it has run more smoothly than many had expected or feared. The crucial test, though, will likely come once the results have been announced. The key will be whether everyone accepts the outcome, winners and losers alike. Gabriel Gatehouse, BBC News in Nairobi.
The BBC's Gabriel Gatehouse visited a polling station as people queued to vote. The people were queuing outside St. Mary's polling station in Nairobi.